The jihadis are promising to kill the evil infidels that dare torture. See, that's how they set it up. Oh, if you're against torture, you're for Obama or Al-Qaeda that our own government's funding. When the jihadis are the most famous for torturing people, period. So they have no moral standing. That's why the media will go, oh, look, the terrorists, now are against torture. We all had better be for it. But what about the lying? I mean, we were told the torture wasn't going on. We were told the NSA wasn't spying on us. We were told there weren't any cancer viruses in the vaccines. We were told, lie after lie after lie. In fact, I think we have it in the, it's Ministry. It's got a liner. It's lies, 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 lies. So do you still think jet fuel brought down the World Trade Centers? We're on a mission that you'll never forget. It's an important piece. I want to play that sometime today. We also have the Ministry's New World Order. What we're talking about is good and evil, right and wrong. A new world order. A new world order. Where the narcotics are shipped in, laundered by the big banks, and then when the low-level dealers or the users get caught, they get thrown in giant prisons on record owned by the very big banks running and laundering the drugs and even leasing and owning, as Bloomberg was forced to report, the aircraft. And I've talked to folks in the military from Joint Task Force 6 and Fort Bliss and others, and they'll sit there watching drug aircraft, big ones come in, and they'll be ordered, leave that one alone, leave that one alone. That's one of ours. Now we're going to stop that little one coming in right there. Get ready to follow that one. Or there'll be 18-wheelers coming across, and they tell the Border Patrol, National Security, let this one through. And then they'll stop, a car with some kids with a half ounce of marijuana and throw the book at them. And we all sit here naively. I mean, it's economics. It's 101. That if drugs are legal and nobody's using them in 1930 and you've just lost alcohol prohibition that you're making all this money off of, what do? You make narcotics and stuff illegal and you start pushing them so you can make bigger profits off the black market. I mean, this is not rocket science, but apparently the average American still doesn't get it. 16 years after the CIA fully declassified, with their Inspector General report, I remember watching him testify on C-SPAN, and I thought, man, the war on drugs will stop now because the CIA Inspector General just admitted they bring most of the drugs in. But they promised to stop, of course. And it wasn't even hardly on the news. And then I'd mention it and go, oh, shut up, conspiracy theorist. There wasn't an Inspector General of the CIA, and they didn't go on C-SPAN, and they didn't testify to Congress. And I remember back in like 1996 on air, people calling and go, there is no NSA. The government doesn't listen to us illegally, kook. There is no Council on Foreign Relations. The Federal Reserve is federal. I heard everything but that the moon was made of cheese. So believe me, we've come a long way where this is all known now. The only question is, what do we do about it? Well, we don't let the globalists start a civil war they're trying to start. We don't want things to get violent. We don't want to have just the ground level police scapegoat as the source of all our problems, the fount of the problem. We want to reform them. We want to identify the globalists, the big central banks that have pulled this off, that want racial and political divides in this country with a dumbed-down population so the social engineers can continue on with business as usual. Coming up, we're going to look at how they balkanized and divided the public in the name of reform in South Africa and more. Stay with us. We're going to the Reverend C.L. Bryant and Pastor Rodney Howard Brown to discuss from their perspectives, one a white pastor formerly from South Africa or in South Africa, the other a black pastor here in America, what the racial manipulation is really all about and where they think it's going. And one of the pastors wanted us to play, I think it's C.L. Bryant, this clip I hadn't seen till this morning, but I've seen similar clips where racist black lady wants water, World Star Hip Hop. World Star Hip Hop is a super viral hip hop site for those that don't know. Some of our videos on there get as many as 3-4 million views. And this latest video dovetails with the famous lady out of Florida who had like 16 kids. She goes, somebody needs to give me some money. I'm going to have more kids. I'm only given 16 checks. I need more. And it's just this crazy disconnect that it's racist if everything isn't given to you. This is the true slavery of the welfare state that was designed to do this on record. So we're going to break that down with Reverend C.L. Bryant of clbryant.net and Pastor Rodney Brown of Revival.com. Revival.com. That's a great website name. So before we go any further, though, I wanted to get into this short clip and newscast piece. 74-year-old woman wins gunfight with criminal thugs. Neighbor blames store owner for defending herself against robbers. And this happened in Springdale, Arkansas this past weekend. We see stuff like this every day that doesn't make national news. But when it does make national news, the system criticizes people. Well, the good news is the head of Interpol says people should be armed to stop radical Islamicists. And the police chief of Detroit says folks should be armed. And the sheriff of Milwaukee says everybody should be armed. By the way, all three of those police chiefs are black. So that's certainly good news. They've tried to make it politically correct and racist for black people to have guns to protect themselves from criminals. So again, don't like Obamacare, you're racist. Want to own guns, you're racist. Don't want to accept open borders, you're racist. They use this as a weapon to beat people over the head while promoting racism. But let's play this clip and then go to our two guests. Here it is.
Two men attempted to rob the store carrying semi-automatic pistols. They then split up and pulled guns on both the man and woman working. The woman reached into her waistband and pulled out a gun, shooting Gould.
I'm really upset about it. Owning a gun is okay, but firing just in heavy traffic. I have a family here.
All right. Again, that's out of News 5 there in Arkansas and Springdale. A good report overall. I mean, they're not the ones that said that idiotic statement. Bullets didn't hurt that guy's place. I mean, what are you supposed to do, just be killed? But I want to ask this question. What type of morons, talk about Common Core having its effect, would rob a gun store? It's like trying to rob cops, a donut shop full of cops. It's just, what is wrong with people? It is just so mindless. C.L. Bryant, who has done, I'm not going to cover all the amazing things he's done, but he has the big hit film, independent filmmaker of the documentary Runaway Slave. He writes a column for SB Magazine and is the host of America on the Edge with C.L. Bryant, clbryant.net. And we're joined by a gentleman he recommended, Pastor Rodney Brown, born in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, grew up in Eastern Cape. Rodney and his wife came to America with only $300 and 4 suitcases with their children at age 7. Under the banner of Revival Ministries International, they traveled 46 weeks a year, holding weekly meetings in cities across North America and around the world, and pastor a church in Tampa, Florida, the River at Tampa Bay, founded in 96. And Pastor Brown also travels frequently to D.C. to meet with congressmen and senators on both sides of the aisle to discuss global banking system and other pressing issues. So that's the reason he's on with us, but also to give his perspective from what happened in South Africa, how they take a real wrong, but then use it to bring in basically communism, is my view. They take one evil and replace it with another. But we're going to discuss it all in the balance of the hour with both gentlemen. C.L. Bryant, good to have you back with us.
Always good to be on with you, Alex. Thank you so much for having us both on again.
Thank you. We're going to get to your colleague in a moment to get his take on things. But first off, Ferguson, the whole state of the world, now, the tragic death in New York where the cop chokes the man to death. I mean, seriously, there's some real problems on both sides of the issue here. But what do you think Obama and the Justice Department are really trying to do?
What they're trying to do, Alex, is create an underclass here in this country by their actions, and they're using emotionalism of skin color in order to do it. Personal responsibility is something that is totally gone out of the window. In both cases, with both of these gentlemen who tragically lost their lives, or both of these men who tragically lost their lives, it was not their skin color that got them killed. It was their conduct. And in the case of Michael Brown, obviously his last moments on earth were documented as to what he was participating in, and that was a strong-armed robbery. Not the color of his skin caused him to do that. It was his conduct. And in the case of New York City, where Garner was choked to death, unfortunately, the policies of Mayor Bloomberg is what got him killed.
That's right.
The taxation on the cigarette and that type of thing is what got this man killed, not his skin color.
Well, that's a point. People don't look at that. I tell you, the Democrats seem to be putting everything they can behind racial politics, identity politics right now. Do you think it's working?
Oh, they've been very successful in doing it, especially with a class that is uninformed and broke. Most of those people that are out on the street protesting and so forth, except for the occupiers, the Wall Street occupiers type, who are probably trust fund babies. But most of those people, black people who are out on the street doing the protesting and all of that, I would like to know how many of them are receiving government checks. How much of this are we funding ourselves because we're giving them government checks to be out there carrying it, laying down in the aisles of Macy's. You've been to New York, I'm sure, during Christmas time, and Macy's hires something like 65,000 people. I'm sure a lot of them are minorities during the Christmas holidays. The only people that they're hurting are themselves and people who really want to work.
I like what Charles Barkley said about all this. I mean, but the media plays into it as well. I mean, watching CNN and MSNBC act like Brown was some type of angel. There are a lot of real cases of police misconduct they could focus in on, but they don't do that. They focus in on the ones where the poster child for it is a strong-armed thug.
It's tragic to see how they are blasting the police in this situation. Barkley brought up a great point, and I really like him speaking his mind. But the facts are these: more than 95% of all police contact with civilians end very, very well. The only time usually that you hear of a police officer going awry is in a situation like this. Have there been historically in the past, and I'm going back 40, 50 years, where there was need to, in the South in particular, to be wary of police officers? Of course there was. But in these days and times, we have to consider the alternative, as Barkley pointed out, if the police were to go away. That is what we have to focus on.
We're going to go to break here in a moment and come back with both of you. And I want you guys to speak about what you want to get into that you think is most important instead of me just asking the questions, because you both have such a wealth of knowledge. But tell us about your colleague as we go out to break, and then we'll come back and talk to him some.
Pastor Rodney Howard Brown is a man of great courage. And what is beautiful about he and I, and we team up on some occasions, the visual effect that you see of a South African-born Caucasian and myself being a black American citizen, both of us now citizens of the United States, is very powerful because we both are men of the cloth, men of God. And, Alex, we are, in fact, taking on this particular issue in this country. And I believe that we're doing it in a very powerful way. He in his way, I in my way. And, of course, he'll toot his own horn as to how he's doing it. And I do believe that he has a powerful ministry, and I'm very happy to be friends with him and certainly glad to be on with you and him on this show today.
Absolutely. Revival.com. Pastor, we're going to break here in about 10 minutes. I'm going to skip this network break because it's so important. I want to get into the banking with you later to understand, what they're trying to distract us from. But Pastor, with your unique perspective from South Africa, looking at what's now happening here in the U.S., what do you think's really going on?
First of all, Alex, let me say it's an honor to be on with you. I listen to you all the time, and thank you for your voice of sanity in a world full of lies and deceit. But it's the age-old story of divide and conquer. like in South Africa, what people don't know, De Beers funded the war in Angola to stop the diamonds from coming out of Angola. So here you've got 1 million landmines in Angola. They stir it up as a racial thing. And when in reality, South Africa does not own its gold, it does not own its diamonds. De Beers owns the diamonds and Anglo-American owns the gold. And that was all done by a man called Jan Smuts, who was Prime Minister of South Africa, went to Cambridge, was going to fall out of university. He was conscripted by a wealthy man, took him on his wing. He went back to Kimberley, secured the diamond fields for De Beers, went back to the Transvaal, pretended to oppose the British, but actually secured the gold fields for Anglo-American. And he rode down the Pall Mall with the Queen. What is an Afrikaner, a white Afrikaner riding down the Pall Mall with the Queen of England if he didn't sell out to the system? So basically, high treason was committed in our country by a man who was supposed to be the leader of our nation, who sold out our diamonds and our gold. And of course, if they get white and black to fight each other, then while we're fighting each other and everybody's distracted, they steal everything that we have. I was just in South Africa and I was on national television across the nation, and I challenged everybody. I challenged my African brothers. I said, you have had your own government for 20 years. Is it any better? Absolutely not. It's more unemployment. There's more trouble there right now because basically they can put the puppets in power, but he who pays the piper calls the tune. And so until we deal with the money system of the globe, the politicians, the next one will be out of office, the next one will be in, and he will pay to the highest, play to the highest bidder. As in America right now, we've got $4 billion a year coming through the hands of the lobby groups into the hands of the Congress and the Senate. And it is stuff like this that just angers me, and I'm gonna do whatever I can in every way possible to speak out against it and to challenge those in power that they need to repent and get right with God. People, it's almost like people have lost the fear of God, and they don't realize that they're going to stand before God and give an account of what they've done on the earth, and especially with humanity.
Well, that's it. We know that civilizations go through cycles. We're going into a very decadent part of the cycle right now. The question is, how bad will it get before people realize that the wages of corruption, the wages of sin are death, and we're talking about political corruption, social corruption. For those that don't know about what happened in Africa, from my layman research, there were certainly problems, but it wasn't just black against white. It was ANC against Zulu and Afrikaner against the British, and people don't know about the Boer War. They don't know about Cecil Rhodes. But from what I've researched, it's very simple. The big British interests, not even the British people, came in over the last 115 years, took over the gold, took over the diamonds, took over all the major resources, and then to defeat the indigenous, not indigenous, but more indigenous than the British, the Dutch who'd been there first, they started playing different tribes off against each other. And then they just sent Mandela in, the communist, to then pose as this heavenly savior because the television told us so. And now the murder rate's about 5 times what it was. Unemployment's almost double what it was. I've seen the numbers. I mean, I've even seen polls in South Africa where the majority of blacks in many areas want to go back. Well, I wouldn't go back to apartheid. I would try to go to something better where the people actually get the resources. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's
happening too. Some places, 65% unemployment. But let me just tell you, Alex, the people are waking up. A former head of the South African Reserve Bank just came up with a book called Inside the South African Reserve Bank, Its Origin and Secret Exposed. And there's a whole group of people that are rising up to sue the South African Reserve Bank for its money creation and what's going on. And I found a group in England. I was just in London last week. I met with a group called Positive Money, and they're doing the same thing. For the first time in 170 years, British Parliament heard about money creation. So I would say that people are getting themselves in the corner and they're coming out. I just don't know what it's going to take the American people to wake up and realize what's going on. It's like I talk to many ministers. They don't want to listen to what I'm saying. But I promise you that what's taking place right now is and what they want to do is create the place to be total lawlessness and to have a situation where we can't trust the police. Then they're going to bring in the NATO troops and we are going to martial law. I mean, that's the next step on the agenda, apart from going house to house and gun confiscation, all driven by United Nations Agenda 21. And so I find myself, you know, obviously we go around, we preach the gospel. We went into Washington, D.C. back in July. C.L. Bryant came and joined me. 15 nights, I preached the gospel, 400 yards from the White House. I exposed the whole system, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, and all the wickedness that's going on. And then during the day, we went into the Congress and the Senate. And I met with many people, both sides of the aisle. One Democratic senator looked at me and he said to me, "Sir, when you come to Washington, you have to decide, are you going to sell your soul?" Then he looked at me and said, "I have not sold my soul." But he said, "Sir, we are an industrial military complex and we are run by offshore banks." And then another congressman looked at me when I told him what's going on with the global money system. He said, "How do you know all this?" He said, "You and probably 10 congressmen in America know what's happening in the money system." And here's what he said to me. He said, "When it all collapses," he said, "there will be no food in the stores." And he said, "Within 12 hours, there will be riots." And he said, "We will go to martial law." So there are people on the inside of the system that are trying to do their best. They just don't know what to do because obviously the whole system is controlled by our wonderful Federal Reserve.
Let me just inject here and then get C.L. Bryant's take on this. The big picture of why they're playing us off against each other. They have engineered a collapse so that they can break us fully and basically force us all onto welfare. That is Agenda 21. That is Cloward and Piven. That's the model they've used in the black community. It's what the social engineers, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood want. They are diabolical demons. And the minute people realize that is the minute we start changing this. And the same British model that took over South Africa is now taking over America. It's multinational. And as you said, when I talk to congressmen and senators privately, a lot of them that you don't hear on the show, folks, I'll just leave it at that, and generals, they go, "No, you're absolutely right. What you say is what's going on." And they said if the American people only knew, it's the ignorance that allows it. That's why we're here. Pastor Bryant, your take on what Mr. Brown was just speaking about and your overall take on any hope for this country.
This is why I wanted to introduce you to Rodney Howard Brown, is because his view, your view, my view, these are the views that in fact can enlighten and save our nation, our republic. Black people don't realize that they have been a test case, a test tube case for what is happening for 40 years, 50 years. There is an underclass, as has been created in South Africa, that is being created right now by the Obama policy. Obama was, in fact, a pawn, a puppet of those who want to bring this about. He's failed in everything else but this. Even the amnesty thing that is coming about is, in fact, a part of a design. There is a design to bring America to its knees. And black people need to understand, especially those clowns who are rioting in the streets, that if, in fact, there is any other place on this globe where they would want to be black, then they need to go there. And Rodney Howard Brown, Pastor Brown, can certainly tell you that they do not want to go to South Africa. And there's no other place that I can possibly name that black people would experience the benefits, the wealth, even if you're poor, that they have being able to experience in America. And so my take on all of this is that there is an awakening that must take place in this country, or in fact, there will be martial law and there will be an underclass that will help drive it. And Al Sharpton and his minions, people like him, even Eric Holder, people like him.
They're in the driver's seat. Stay there, C.L. Bryant. Coming right back to you. Powerful information. Well, he helped found 3 different Tea Parties. He's a successful radio host, very successful pastor, author, researcher, filmmaker. C.L. Bryant is his name, clbryant.net. And he's my type of activist for freedom. I mean, he's out there on every media platform he can, and he's reaching millions of people with the truth. And if more of us start doing that, it's game over. It's game over, ladies and gentlemen. And then we can see real prosperity and people really getting along and really coming together. Makes me so angry, the race baiting and the division and trying to push people into the globalist-run CIA, hip-hop, gangster culture, and the whole rebellious establishment music culture. It's been declassified that they want to wreck our youth. Not the government in general, but the social engineering elements of the private central banks that are in control. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, De Beers that he was listing earlier that has a worldwide diamond monopoly. Do you know why there are so many movies where there's villains in Africa, black villains, that have black slaves in the Congo or wherever, mining diamonds and gold? Now, in some cases, there's stuff like that. I've studied it. Had documentary filmmakers, mercenaries on, and I want his colleague to correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne. But in most movies, when you see Leonardo DiCaprio finding out that there's an evil African country secretly selling diamonds, and they're blood diamonds, they're only blood diamonds when somebody in a country or a region is mining diamonds on their own or through a government to sell them on the market. And De Beers and the Oppenheimers, on record, will send in helicopter gunships to take you out, just outside of law. I remember an article in '99 in New Yorker magazine bragging about it. My dad, on the side, just because he went to college with some of them, knew a major South African family that was in the diamond business, was one of the only families ever to develop a diamond mine outside of De Beers. And then Clinton ordered it an environmental zone in Arkansas, and they bought them out for $4 billion. My dad's friends developed those mines in Arkansas. There's diamonds all over the place. They're semi-precious. They're like agates. I mean, they're near worthless, but people will pay a 5-year salary to get their wife one. It's all mind control. And I'm kind of segueing off, but it shows the type of emotionalism that goes on. The real blood diamonds are the certified safe by the UN and De Beers. That just shows the triumph of fraud over reality. They don't want Africa with its incredible resources to actually go to the Africans. So every time some country starts building up, I mean, look at what they've done in different areas, kicking all the whites out with the UN there promoting it because they want Africa to collapse. I'm going to go back to Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne of Revival.com. I wanted to have C.L. Bryant finish his point about Al Sharpton and Eric Holder and all of these guys who know exactly what they're doing. And I think you're about to say when there is martial law or a race war, if they can get it, that it's on their hands. Or I don't want to finish your sentence. What were you about to say when the break cut you off, Pastor?
When the break cut me off, there is a race war that is brewing, and it's one that is by design of this government. And you have people under the guise of reverend, like Reverend Al Sharpton, who has never pastored a church. Neither has Reverend Jesse Jackson. I've pastored 3 churches. Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne is very successful in pastoring the river. But the church itself, in so many cases, and pastors, Alex, in so many cases, are complicit in their silence of what is going on. They don't want to know. They're like the ostrich, who, in fact, have their faces, their heads in the sand. And they certainly don't want to tell their congregants what's going on because so many of them have actually, not all, but so many of them have actually sold their soul to the system in order to keep their doors open. So they think.
You're right. We have a book available at InfoWarsStore.com by Pastor Chuck Baldwin called Romans 13, written with his son who's a constitutional lawyer. And they use Romans 13 out of context. If Romans 13 was believed in the context Hitler used it for, or our government uses it for, pastors, I'd like you to both comment on this, then Jesus should have followed his orders, or the disciples, or the folks in the fiery furnace or the lion's den should have done what government told them. If all government is basically by God, boy, they've really twisted that, haven't they?
Alex, there are fiery furnaces in front of us now, and those who will bow down will, in fact, be trampled by the government system. And Pastor Brown and I have talked about this on so many occasions. And here's a wealth of knowledge and the grand scheme of things. He's really able to pull it together. I do want to yield to him at this point. I really think people need to hear what he has to
You bet. We'll have him back by himself, and you back by himself as well, Mr. Bryant. But sure, before we get into South Africa parallels, how they don't let Africa have its own resources, any gold or diamonds by an African country is a blood diamond. This is the type of word games they play. I want you to comment on that. Also, the martial law that C.L. Bryant says is coming, but specifically Romans 13, that was Hitler's favorite Bible passage.
And when you look at the passage that Hitler loved, when you look at the powers that are ordained here, when you look at that, Hitler was also very much into Darwinism. Darwin was one of Hitler's favorite reads. Why? Because unbeknownst to so many who push the present-day school system, Common Core, and all of that, Darwin was a racist. And we need to understand that so many things that are happening under the Obama administration are based on the fact that this man is also complicit with the racism that he claims to be so much against.
Well, that was the Margaret Sanger, Rockefeller, Darwinian eugenics plan. That's what it is by stealth. Absolutely. Going back to the other pastor, Howard Brown, your take on Romans 13 and then expanding.
Well, I mean, I believe we need to stand up for righteousness. As a man of God, if I see those in power breaking the law, then I'm going to go and get in their face. I mean, the bottom line is people in government are elected by us. They are there to serve us. We don't serve them. We don't bow down to them. When I walked into the Capitol and met with congressmen and senators in the House and the Senate, and I spoke direct to them. Some of them I had 3 or 5 minutes with, but I said, look, you might be out of office in 4 or 5 years. I'm still going to be in the ministry, so I'm going to talk straight. I'm not here to be liked. I'm not looking for your vote, but I'm here to warn you that we are on the brink of a total collapse of our society. Yeah, we've got $85 billion a month being sucked out of our nation through the offshore banking cartels propping up Wall Street. They are raping and pillaging our nation. You've got 27 million African-American babies aborted through Planned Parenthood, and no one says anything about it. They just leave it alone. So I believe that we have to stand up and come against the system that is wicked. I don't believe that because we're Christians that we go lie down and just let them roll over us. Absolutely not. If they think that we're going to be quiet, let me tell you right now, it'll be a cold day in hell with the devil singing Frosty the Snowman before I shut up. I'm not going to shut up. And I am an American, and I raise my hand to pledge to defend the Constitution, and that means the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, and I'll do whatever it takes. So they should never have sworn me in as a citizen, because you've got a problem now. You've got somebody who really believes in the Constitution and is going to stand up against tyranny. And so I know that there's a group of ministers that once a year they have what they call one Sunday a year, Freedom Sunday. So they called me and they said, would you like to join us? I said no. Every Sunday is Pulpit Freedom Sunday. I said, we are reaching into the inner cities, Alec, right here in the Tampa Bay area. Our crime rate in Hillsborough County is down 64%, according to the Tampa Police Department, the FBI. They don't know why, but we are going house to house. We're praying with people. We're giving people opportunity to accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. We are raising all of our people to go out, and then I bus people in from the inner cities. Our church is totally integrated, and we have to reach the inner cities of America because this is the boiling pot that if the money system collapses, there'll be no food, and the riots are going to happen, and then we're going to martial law, if not civil war, all those at the same time. Because I know that the moment they go to martial law, that means the confiscation of the American Second Amendment, and that ain't going to happen. Not where I live here in Florida. So, I'm very passionate about it and very bold about it, but I really believe that.
Well, you got the floor. Keep elaborating the parallels you've seen in South Africa and now what's happening here today, Pastor.
Well, it's a whole bait and switch. So basically, while the American people are fighting each other, while they're caught up with television, while they're caught up in the NFL, NBA, American Idol, watching the movies, going to Starbucks, as long as they can go shopping at Walmart, all of their rights and privileges are being taken away. In South Africa, we've watched a total erosion of the people's rights under the cartel that runs the place. There's nothing more than a mafioso operation. And I'm going to be back the end of February and end of March, and I'm going to be speaking to people in the government and really warning them, we can turn this thing around. I don't believe that this thing is too far gone in America. I believe there are many people waking up. Alex, you have a very big audience. You look what you did to Piers Morgan. That was phenomenal. I thank God that you got rid of him. But I believe that we can see America turned around. And the only hope for America is another great spiritual awakening. In 1700s, if you look at the condition of America, it then came a first great awakening. The 1800s was the same thing. And I believe another spiritual great awakening will turn America back. And that's what we are trusting for in South Africa and, of course, in the United Kingdom. Because every time people coming back to their spiritual roots and coming back to God, then it sets the New World Order back. It sets the global agenda back. And I'll just tell you, they're not ahead of the plan. They are behind. These guys are 10 to 15 years behind. And they are getting impatient right now, and they're trying to preempt something. But we are praying. We've got our whole church praying. We have all-night prayer meetings. We have a prayer chain. People are praying for America. We're praying that whatever is hidden, whatever is done behind closed doors is leaked out, and that the Lord unravel the plan of the wicked over this nation. And then I'm doing my best to mobilize the pastors to train their people, get them out of the system, get them off of the government aid, government support, get them off of the food stamp, getting everybody to grow their own food, get everybody onto organic food, get their own, water supply. I mean, we've.
That's why they want to take culture and God away from us, because then even if you're poor, you don't feel pathetic and won't give your soul over to the New World Order. They really do traffic in the souls of men. They really do want to shut our jobs down so people don't feel self-respectable. They really want to promote thuggism and gangsterism to ensnare our youth. I've talked to top people in MTV, top musicians, and confirmed what's always been a rumor out there. It is so cold-blooded how the system wants to dumb us down so they can literally enslave not just us physically, but our minds. Is this modern system not slavery? Is Cloward and Piven not slavery?
It's total slavery to the debt system. Every American, the moment you're born, you're part of the collateral of the system, which really, if you look at America, basically on paper, we are a corporation. So that's why if they lose a couple of citizens, it's just collateral damage. That's why we got all the illegals coming across our borders, because they can make them legal citizens, put them on the system, get them to vote, change the Constitution. And we have to, as Americans, as American citizens, we have to stand up and draw a line in the sand. And I'm going back to Washington, D.C. next July for 8 days. I encourage people to come stand. If you want to come speak, Alec, you're welcome to come stand with me. I'm right in the shadow of the White House, in the Constitution Hall. And I'm going into the Congress every day, the Senate, and really talking straight to these men that are in power. We have to turn this thing around, because the handwriting's on the wall. We stand on the brink of total collapse. And most people, they don't want to hear what I'm saying, but America's not ready for what's coming. In '99, I went to Madison Square Garden. I rented the garden for 6 weeks. We had over 48,000 conversions, but I preached a message on the 30th of July, '99. There's a storm coming. Talked about the rise of terrorism. Talked about nations plotting the downfall of America as we speak. Talked about the fact that America is not ready for what's coming. And then I asked the question, what would happen if a missile struck New York City? That was 2 years before 9/11. 2 years before those planes hit the towers. I stood there at great cost to our ministry. We almost bankrupted our ministry. That event cost us $6.7 million. But the Lord helped us, and we came through the other side. The event in D.C. cost us 1.2, but we paid cash for that, and God helped us do that. And Alex, we are doing everything we can, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, mobilizing everybody to wake America up. This is like deja vu. This is like Groundhog Day. Everything we saw happen in Southern Africa, we see happening here. the whole censorship of the media, the whole how the media just puts out the same dribble. You can't believe one word that the media tell you. And so I'm very glad about alternative media, about InfoWars, PrisonPlanet.com, Drudge Report, Breitbart News, and all of the alternative media that's out there, because we have to get the word out. We've got to wake the American people up, and we've got to tell Americans they got to cry out to God and come back before it's too late. Because I promise you, let me just say this. I did a show a few weeks ago, and I talked about the camps that are being built. I received a call from a man in Kentucky, very wealthy businessman, and he said to me, he said, I don't know what to tell you. He said, but somebody told me to call you because you would understand. He said, I'm a contractor. I do major developments. And he said, some of my people work other jobs. And he said, they just have connected gas to these gas chambers. He said, do you know anything about it? I said, look, I said, anything's possible with the total corruption of the system. And I mentioned that on the radio. I mean, we got attacked left, right, and center. They said Howard Brown says Obama's building concentration camps and gas chambers. Listen, it doesn't matter if it's Obama. The next president's going to do the same thing. And the previous president. The last real president we had was John F. Kennedy. And that's why they put a bullet in him, because he's going to shut the system down. Yes, Reagan came out the blue, but they put old man Bush to watch him because he was the head of the CIA. This whole thing is cooked. And you could see it when Mandela died. On Air Force One, heading to South Africa. Guess who's on Air Force One? The Bushes, the Clintons, and the Obamas. What does that mean? It's a club. The whole thing is a club. The whole thing is cooked. And as long as Americans keep thinking, oh, I'm voting for my man in the Democrat and I vote for my man in the Republican, they both are the same. When are people going to wake up and realize that this is a government by the people, of the people, for the people, we the people?
No, I hear you. It's clear we need to have Pastor Rodney Howard Brown of Revival.com back on. I owe C.L. Bryant for telling us to get him on. Man, this guy's on fire, and so is C.L.
Yes,
Bryant.
he is.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
he is.
Well, let's try to set some brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere to have a revival in this country. A revival of reality, folks, and recognizing good from evil. Stay with us. All right, our guest will be with us for a little bit in the next hour. Then we've got Dr. Steve Pachenik coming on about the torture report. We're going to be deciphering what's really going on behind the scenes. Before we go any further, I just want to say this. We'll have both these men back on the show. There is a storm coming. The vanguard of it's already hit. There is a great tyranny taking place worldwide. And if you notice, it's standardized all over the world. It looks the same. It acts the same. It turns the people against each other. It impoverishes. It is a planetary world government being established that's main drive is eugenics or reducing population. It comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Even if you don't believe in the devil, which of course I do, it is the manifestation. Humans are manifesting this regardless. This is real. And the preparations for collapse are taking place everywhere. This hour of the radio broadcast is brought to you by Secret 12. Our proprietary blend of super organic methylcobalamin and one other form of vitamin B12. If you have a deficiency in vitamin B12, it causes so many problems. Most of it is synthetic and unabsorbable. This is totally absorbable. Sold out for weeks due to difficult proprietary processing. Back in stock and limited supply with back order within 1 week of launch. Last shipment until 2015. Can take weeks or months for supply to arrive. Most bioactive, bioavailable form using our proprietary process. Nutraceutical grade, proprietary B12 taken by mouth, no needles, no injections. 2 key forms of bioactive and super powerful B12. One of them I can't pronounce. Aceta, I can't do it. And methylcobalamin in one synergistic blend. Secure yours now before we blast it out to our email list tonight. We expect our limited supply to sell out. Get it before December 17th for guaranteed Christmas delivery. And your purchase of things like Secret 12, Silver Bullet, Super Male Vitality, and the other great nutraceutical products at InfoWarsLife.com makes this radio, TV, media operation possible. And so you're funding a platform to really try to raise the alarm and warn the people. So I want to thank you all for your support. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 855-253-3139. We're going to break here, just 4 or 5 minutes left with each one of you. Reverend C.L. Bryant, I can see why you recommended getting Rodney Howard Brown on. He really speaks with authority, and more importantly, his information is right on target.
And the model of his church, and of course my pastor, Pastor James A. McMinnis, is also the pastor of an interracial church in a city like Shreveport, Louisiana, where I'm from, the last city to concede defeat in the Civil War, where old ways die hard. You have a church that we preach to over 3,000 people every Sunday. And so I would recommend that you speak with him as well, because ministers, pastors, the church is going to have to lead this particular fight. Men of courage, men who will not back down from the principles, who will not yield to the politics, but will stand on the principle of God's word and their personal convictions that are anchored in that word. That's why Pastor Rodney Howard Brown is a dear friend of mine, and this is why my personal pastor, of course, I'm the pastor at large around the nation, but my personal pastor, Pastor James A. McMinnis, is also someone who has those same convictions.
Well, it was the church that led the Revolutionary War in 1776, and now the government's come in with faith-based initiatives and the rest of it and taken it over, and that's why we're in so much trouble. That's why they push all this immorality on purpose, is to obviously make us servile, mindless, and childlike. We're going to come back with 5 more minutes with both of you. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Revival.com is Pastor Rodney Howard Brown's website. CLBryant.net is Reverend C.L. Bryant's site. Can't wait to have him back up when his new book comes out. Finishing up, men, going back to Pastor Brown, other points you'd like to add, other things you'd like to say to the people out there?
When I was in Washington, D.C., right after one of the night meetings, a man walked up to me and he shook my hand. He said, "I work for the Federal Reserve." So I burst out laughing. And then he looked at me, he said, "Everything you're saying is true." And I said, "Well, I know that because I've studied. I've got all the books on the whole thing, because I realized when I was a kid growing up in South Africa, I always thought to myself, something's wrong with this picture. And I just, couldn't really understand. I got a hold of that book, the same book that got you turned on, which called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. My mom and dad had that book, so I read that book, but no one really said too much about it. And then, of course, I came to America, and here we are in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I'm just focused on the church and revival and getting everybody back to their first love. But about 5 years ago, the Lord really spoke to me and showed me what's going on. It was like a shock to me. Alex, I have to be honest with you, I cried for 2 days over America. I could not believe that the America that I came to know and love is not what it seems, that it's really a facade. It's like Disney World. It shocked me to the core. And I realized that I have to wake the churches up and get the pastors on board and mobilize the people. If you can believe it, I'm starting gun clubs in churches. So
amazing,
kind of radical. But if we don't have our Second Amendment, we won't have the First Amendment. And so I appreciate so much what you're doing. We want you to know that we're praying for you. Don't worry about the critics. As we always say, the dogs bark, but the caravan keeps moving. And the fact of the matter is that 100 years from today, in eternity, you and I will look at each other and we will say we were not quiet and we did not shut up, but we were bold to tell the truth and to stand up for what is right. And so I salute you, Alex.
No, I salute you. We're all in this together to try to get justice. And as you pointed out, of the 50-something million people aborted, half of them are black or more. You'll never hear that out of Jesse Jackson's mouth or out of Al Sharpton's race-baiting, evil FBI mouth. It's just so sickeningly corrupt, and we just need to alert and warn the people. And as you said, and as Reverend Bryant said, there is an awakening happening, but the enemy's coming in to try to stop that. And as you said, the globalists are about 15 years behind. They're scared. They're not invincible. Closing comments, Reverend Bryant.
Alex, when 43% of all abortions in this nation are performed by 13% of the population, there's something terribly wrong with those figures. How can black folks be upside upside down in that type of massacre if there's not a design to it? And then how can black people support a party that is, in fact, contributing to the mass genocide of the people? And so I encourage everyone to follow me at RevCLBryant, at RevCLBryant, and our website is under construction. We're about to go syndication with our radio show, and love to talk to you about it. The new movie will be out soon, Red, White, and Black. If you like Runaway Slaves, you'll love this.
Man, I love the names. I love the names you come up with, but also the content. It's so exciting. I mean, you're writing books, you're making films, you're reaching millions of people. You are the answer, Mr. Bryant. People like you and your spirit. And I know this isn't a love fest today. It's just that it's exciting for the three of us and all the listeners to think about the fact we're fighting back. We're going to have high morale. We know how the book ends.
Absolutely. And we win.
Yeah, Alex, one more thing. People say, what can I do? One woman took prayer out of schools. One person full of the fire of God can make a change in a nation.
Well, that's why they're scared of the First Amendment. They know that fire is waiting. God bless you both. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.